All right, so cosmopoesis means universe making. Epic has traditionally been considered so monumental and grand a mode of poetic expression that literary authorities have dared make few official additions over the years to the fixed Homer, Virgil, Milton pantheon. Okay, circle pantheon. Pantheon means, well, pan means God, and pan means many, and theos means gods. So many gods. So pantheon means many gods. So in other words, traditionally, the only people who could write epics were Homer, Virgil, and Milton. But a change of attitude towards genre and a different kind of reading of the works of these very authors, placed beside similar pieces from widely separated cultures, effectively reveals that epic is a phenomenon both more frequent and more diverse than the recognized canon tends to indicate. So circle canon. Canon means a collection of books. So unconventional a reading, implying an intuitive kinship between seemingly dissimilar works, requires the critic to give less attention to external epic characteristics and more to those intrinsic to its nature. For instance, its sense of totality and its consciousness of mission, whatever the style or medium. Intrinsic means internal, versus extrinsic, which means external. I know you have big questions here, but let me just try and get all this out and then I will explain. Not all of it, but just a few pages. To look at epic in this manner and to explore its relation to culture uncovers several findings likely to modify some of the basic notions of the genre. In examining an array of examples, one discovers, for instance, that the epic imagination produces few songs of victory after conquest, tending rather to create its heroic chansons in times of defeat out of need rather than plenitude. Circle chansons. That means songs of lament. In other words, epics sing songs in times of defeat, not in times of joy. It evidently makes its appearance not so much in advanced societies in celebration of an already established code, page 2, as in an emerging culture still close to the mythological mode of thought. Okay, so on the top of 2, mythological. So myth simply means using stories to explain the world. That's it. Some people think that myth means lie, and that's not true. All right, myth just means story. Further, epic, apparently has little immediate effect upon the people out of whose society it arises, usually bearing centuries later whatever political fruit it produces. Okay, highlight. Get your highlighter ready. Most often, however, epic's chief influence is upon readers in far removes, after it has become part of the body of metaphysical and moral resources that poetry represents. Stop. So in other words, she's saying that epics, like the story of a people moving from one place to another, so say the Israelites out of Egypt moving to the Promised Land, these stories don't mean as much to them in the present moment as they do to us looking back and learning from them. The function of epic as a formulator of this ideal cosmos demands for its circle eschatological completion the incorporation of all possible instances of the genre, however humble, since even minor examples contain keys to the larger image of human experience poetry seeks to adumbrate. All right, circle adumbrate. Eschatological means the last and final. Adumbrate means to produce a faint image of. So what she is saying, what she's gonna go on to say, is that even the tiniest things can be made epic if the gods bless them. Okay, I'll explain more of that in just a little bit. Hence, what we might speak of as the imagination's redemption of history depends on a critical reconception of the purposes of epic and a constant effort to recognize it in unlikely situations and in sometimes inchoate form. Circle inchoate. And it means not fully developed. Okay. The assumption of epic sublimity, so circle sublimity. Yeah, inchoate. It means not fully developed. The assumption of epic sublimity. So if you circle sublimity, the word sublime means the highest representation of something. Epic sublimity and awe has been particularly misleading, not only to critics, but fully as much to poets in the pursuit of writing the epic, or their vocation. The Irish poet Patrick Kavanagh, for instance, confesses in the sonnet epic his early dismissal of ordinary occurrences in his isolated community as unworthy of epic. But turning back to Homer, as he indicates, made clear that events in themselves, highlight this, events in themselves are not the real determinants of a poem's significance. Okay, so this is part of his poem. I inclined to lose my faith in Ballyrush and Gorton till Homer's ghost came whispering to my mind. He said, I made the Iliad from such a local row. Gods make their own importance. Highlight, gods make their own importance. What does that mean? It means that even little things, what he calls a local row, can become epic, can become big stories if the gods make them important. So the example I always give is someone who asks their God, whomever that is, for a blessing before they go do something. And then if that something happens, then they thank God for the blessing and it becomes epic. Even if it's just a little something like passing a test. All right? Doesn't have to be like founding the city of Rome. It can be just something small. You see this a lot with like football players after a game. They say, "Oh, I want to thank God for all the help He's given me," things like that. Whether you believe God helped him or not does not matter. He made it important. He thinks God blessed him. That's that. Highlight the next line. It is the work of deities, not mortals, Kavanagh suggests, to endow human action with epic stature. Stop. Seen in that light, no event should be considered too humble, no local row, so a row is a fight or an action, too unimportant if the gods choose to dignify it. Certainly, the ordinarily expected elevation is not present in the tales of the patriarchs in the book of Genesis, nor is to be found in the Sumerian Gilgamesh. The African window epic, top of 3, Don Quixote, the Brothers Karamazov, or 100 Years of Solitude, not to mention Pilgrim's Progress, Alice in Wonderland, and The Wizard of Oz. Yet all of these, in greater or lesser degree, bear the imprint of epic. So what she's saying there is all those stories have the gods in them. Sometimes obviously, like in the Iliad and the Odyssey, when you see the gods working with the humans, but sometimes not so obviously when they just seem to be around. Okay, highlight this. Gods may make their own importance through inspiration, through Plato's divinely induced madness, through angel, muse, or duende, as Lorca puts it, or as Marathon suggests, through the Platonic muse descended into the human soul. Stop. So she's just listing the ways that gods make themselves important in an epic. However it occurs, in other words, it being gods making things important, the mysterious process that produces any genuine work of art brings with it ab ovo, circle that, it means from the beginning, a pattern and identity, so that the kind of poem, its genre, is already determined at the moment of fertilization. So basically, if the gods decide to bless the story, it's epic, like right from the beginning. That's where ovo means. Like ovo means ovum, egg. So at the very beginning, it is what it is. You can't, and also just to think about this for the future, you can't make a tragedy a comedy. You can't make a comedy an epic. But in epic, you're going to have the other three. Epic, or comedy, tragedy, and lyric. Okay? It is from this genetic imprinting, its ontological pattern. So if you circle ontological, it means to know a thing all at once. As we might call it, that the genre of a work is established. In the formal method, those two guys contend that the typical form of a whole work, the whole utterance, is determined by its genre. That a work is only real in the form of a definite genre. Moreover, they continue, every genre has its methods and means of seeing that are accessible to it alone. It seems clear that they regard genre as an internal perspective, or as I have described it elsewhere, a view of a certain psychic terrain. If the determining form of a work is, as I am arguing, an inner disposition, there can be no prescribed structure for it, no privileged medium, nor any external characteristics preferred. In this sense, highlight this. In this sense, genre is not a logical category, but an ontological image, a state of being, an ideal topography. Furthermore, keep highlighting, one ought to be able to recognize genre as a world that one is stepped into in entering any literary work of art, and to find the recognition of the territory an aid rather than a hindrance to interpretation. Stop. What does that mean? Well, if you step onto a basketball court and everybody's playing basketball, and then all of a sudden the football comes flying across the floor, you're like, what? I thought we were playing basketball. So if it looks like basketball and people are playing basketball, it should be basketball, right? It shouldn't be football. So when you step into an epic, it should be epic. You shouldn't feel like you're in any other. If the gods are there, if it starts in the middle of things, if it feels like there's an epic hero doing big things, it's an epic, okay? Just like in Romeo and Juliet, once you step into that tragedy, you feel like something bad's going to happen. And there's no way you can stop it. Because it's a tragedy, and you can't make it anything other than what it is. Okay. As for epic, a work should be identifiable as belonging to that category, whatever its medium, length, or style, when what can be observed from within it, highlight this, activates a full and complete cosmos. So when I say a full and complete cosmos, I mean all of the things that are involved in the world that is being made. So you're making your own world, and within that world, you have all of the things, including the divine, okay? And so including the gods, or God, or whomever it is. This is to say that you can stop highlighting. This is to say that epic displays on a panoramic scale an entire way of life, caught, it is true, at a moment of radical change, and yet viewed from an dimensional standpoint, in the very act, transfigured and preserved. Actually, highlight that last sentence, from this down to preserved. I'm looking around and I'm seeing a lot of you doing your work, and I really appreciate that you're paying attention and doing what I'm asking you to do. I know it's difficult from your place there. Some of you don't have your video on, and I can't tell if you're working or scrolling, but you know, it is what it is. Well, like I said, you are responsible. You are a lot more responsible than you would normally be if you're online. And you have to treat it that way. Okay. With such a vision, Homer committed, top of 4, to a transcendent realm of history, the image of Greek honor carried to its utmost extreme. The Beowulf poet raised his Geats into permanence. As these poets demonstrate, however, highlight this: the immortality of a people is at the expense of a hero. What does that mean? Anybody? The hero has to die, basically. Ryan Outlaw, in Caroline Gordon's Green Centuries, stands for all epic protagonists when he realizes his position. Before him lay the empty West, behind him the loved things of which he was made. His anguished cry, highlight this please, were not men raised into the westward turning stars only after they had destroyed themselves, voices the question confronting all heroic endeavor. So his cry is, or you can stop highlighting, his cry is, do I have to die to make this happen? And the top of the next paragraph answers it. Highlight this. And the answer, one fears, must be in the affirmative. So the affirmative means yes. Through their heroes, keep highlighting, epics raise to the heavens the specific peoples they enshrine, and in those varied and brilliant stars that